Hey guys, thanks for joining me for this completely unsponsored video. I realized something recently that in my most popular video, I cover what I think are all of the most important things to consider before dropping your hard-earned money on a power station. And these things are expensive, so it's important that you get it right, if at all possible, the first time. And right at the beginning of that video, I pointed out that it's hard to recommend the best portable power station because different people have different needs and different budgets. And depending on how you prioritize specific features and functionalities, the best choice for you might not be the best choice for somebody else. And so in that video, I really didn't make any brand specific recommendations. I just kind of tried to arm you with enough information so that you can consider what specific priorities and needs that you have and then make an informed decision. But unsurprisingly, I still very often get questions from viewers wanting me to make a specific recommendation for them. So in this video, I'm going to try to do just that. I'm going to take a crack at it anyway. And because there's no getting around the fact that people do have different needs, I'm going to break down the choices into several key categories and then kind of make a couple of specific recommendations for what I think are the best overall and the best budget choices in each category based on my hands-on experience with literally dozens of power station brands and models over the past several years, taking into account things like feature set, build quality, warranty, and of course the current price. So you'll want to keep in mind that pricing can and does change over time. So it's possible, depending on when you're actually watching this video, that prices might have changed for a variety of power stations that I'm covering here. So just factor that in when you're considering what's best for your particular needs. And of course, I'll put links for everything that I'm recommending or talking about in the description below, along with any discount codes that I might happen to have that would apply to those units. So here goes. Starting with the small category, and I'm defining these as ultra compact, lightweight power stations with an AC output limit of somewhere in the 300 watt range and a battery capacity under 300 watt hours and usually around 288 watt hours. Units in this capacity are well suited for things like recharging your portable electronics, running a few lights, maybe a fan or two, and maybe running a CPAP machine for maybe just one night. So fairly limited use cases, but also by far the easiest on the wallet. So my pick for this small category for best budget power station is the Pecron E300 LFP, which is a pretty good steal right now. It's just about $159. And what's noteworthy about the E300 is that while it has a class typical 288 watt hours of battery capacity, it also happens to boast a 600 watt AC inverter rather than a 300 watt inverter. So it does give you just a few more options on what you can run with it in the event that you might occasionally need to run more than 300 watts of output for short periods of time. But my pick for best overall power station in this small category is the Anker Solix C300. It's just an extremely compact and well-built unit, fairly new to the market, and is coming in at a reasonable $200. And I've selected it as the best overall small power station because it's got a class-leading 5-year warranty from a very well-established brand name, and the fact that it's also got the latest high-output 140 watt USB-C tech built in, and that does give you a bit of future-proofing as a bonus. I do also have a couple of honorable mentions in this category that I think are worth pointing out. And if you only need DC outputs and don't really care about an AC inverter, which might be true in something in this small category, the Anker Solix C300DC is also an extremely good option at just $170. Also with the 5-year warranty. And it has a cleverly designed pop-up area light on top, which is super useful in a variety of situations. And then lastly, I think I'll just mention that the EcoFlow River 3, which just released, appears to be on a very good sale right now for a ridiculously low $169. That's after a $70 off Amazon coupon. And that's an extremely good price. Just keep in mind though, that while it's extremely well built, it does have one of the smaller battery capacities in this small category at just 245 watt hours. Still, it's a fantastic option on a budget if you can get it at that $169 price. Okay, moving on to the next category, which I'll call the medium small group, one notch up in size. This category will be compact power stations with at least 600 watts of AC output and at least 500 watt hours of battery capacity. And keep in mind that since a power station's battery capacity is the single largest determinant of its final price, you're going to see a clear trend toward higher prices as we move into higher and higher battery capacities. But units with at least 600 watts and 500 watt hours of capacity will do everything, obviously, that the smaller guys can do, but that little bit of extra capacity now gives you a few more options. So things like running a portable DC fridge or DC fridge freezer combo for a day or two, getting a couple of nights of runtime out of that CPAP machine. Basically, these are very solid choices for covering the basics on overnight camping trips, or maybe serving as a nice little UPS backup for your computer. Probably not a high-end gaming system, but standard computer, and maybe things like backing up your internet router and modem for short power outages, things like that. Okay, now my top budget pick for this medium-small group is the Pecron E600 LFP. And it's currently priced at $329, and it does have a 2-year warranty, but it does manage to give you 614 watt hours of battery capacity and a class-leading 1200 watts of AC output through the AC inverter, and a reasonable 300 watts of solar input capacity. And it even throws in a wireless phone charging option as a bonus. Well, it's not really an option, it's built in right to the top. All right, so my top overall pick in this category is still the Pecron E600 LFP. Seriously, the bang for the buck on this unit is so strong, there really wasn't even anything worth mentioning that was even remotely close in this category. So as far as I'm concerned, if you're looking for something in this particular capacity class or category of power stations, I think the E600 LFP is simply the best option that I've seen. Okay, moving on to the very popular mid-size power station category, and these are going to be power stations with an AC output in that 1,000 to say 1,200 watt range, with a battery capacity that is at least 700 watt hours or more, which are going to open up some additional options for you, like running a full-size fridge freezer for maybe 6 to 8 hours, or powering an electric blanket all night, in addition to some other things, or maybe just doing all the things that the smaller units will do, but for 2 or 3 days at a time instead of maybe just 1 or 2 days. And they'll typically take more solar input for faster solar charging if that's something that's important to you. Now, my top pick in this category for the best budget power station in this category is the Bluetti AC70. Now, this actually surprised me a little bit because while Bluetti AC series power stations are always solid options and they have excellent warranties, very good build quality, they're fairly rugged, lots of functionality, you typically do pay a bit more for those things, but apparently not with the AC70, at least not at the moment with the current price of just $399. Now, the highlights on this unit are that it has 1,000 watts of AC inverter output, 768 watt hours of capacity, and an extremely generous 500 watts of solar input capacity. And it actually does have a battery expansion option, so if you need to add capacity later, you have that option. So lots of flexibility on one of the best prices in this category, and with a 5-year warranty to boot. Now, my top pick overall in the mid-size category is the Anker Solix C800+, which comes in at $499. And it has the same 768 watt hours capacity as the AC70, but it offers a larger 1,200 watts of AC output and a 5-year warranty. And I should note that while it does not have battery expansion options, it does have a very cleverly designed compartment on top that houses 2 rechargeable LED flashlights and a telescopic handle that these can attach to lets you use it as area lights as well. It's just an extremely cool kind of innovative design, an extra level of functionality that I've not seen anywhere else, and to me, worth a little bit of extra money. If you don't think you need a battery expansion option. And as an honorable mention in this category, I'll say that the Dabbsson DBS 1300 is also no slouch here and might be worth considering. At a current price of about $599, it's $100 more than the Anker Solix C800+, and $200 more than that AC70, but it is mostly because it has significantly more battery capacity, nearly double of what the other two have. It has a full 1,330 watt hours. And when you consider that they're also using super safe semi-solid state chemistry with a very long service life, that extra cost is easily justified if you need something with a little bit more battery capacity. And the DBS 1300 does have a battery expansion option and a 5-year warranty as a bonus. So definitely also a very solid option. All right, we've made it to the halfway point, and in this second half, we're going to cover the large, extra large, and then as a kind of a bonus, the modular home backup categories. So for my large power station category, I've kind of defined these as having between 1,800 and 2,200 watts of AC output and between 1,000 and 2,000 watt hours of battery capacity. So these kinds of specs are going to allow you to start doing things like running larger loads like microwave ovens or air fryers or instant pots, heating water like coffee makers, or even running small air conditioners for short periods of time, or all of those things that the smaller power stations can do, but for quite a bit longer. Now, units in this category can also act to a limited extent for power backup solutions for your house for relatively short duration outages of about maybe a day or so, or a couple of days of power backup for a typical full-size fridge freezer, or maybe a nice long weekend car camping trip. And as it turns out, all of the units in this category do offer some kind of battery expansion option, enabling you to add capacity to extend overall run times when you need to, or maybe when your budget allows. So for this large power station category, my pick for the best budget power station goes to the OUPES, or OUPES, what they call it, OUPES Mega 1. And that is packed with a solid feature set, including a 2,000 watt AC inverter and 1,024 watt hours of capacity, a very respectable 800 watts of solar input capacity, and a reasonable 3-year warranty for just $450. Now, my pick for best overall power station in this category has to be the Pecron E1500 LFP. Now, it does cost a fair bit more at $699 than the Mega 1 does, but you're getting 50% more battery capacity, and you're getting 22% more AC power output at 2,200 watts, 800 watts of solar input capacity, and wireless phone charging, mobile app support, and 5-year warranty at that price, which if you've got the extra $250 to spend over the Mega 1, I think it's certainly worth it in my opinion. Okay, moving on to the extra large category, and I'm defining that as power stations that provide at least 2,400 watts of continuous AC output or more, and 2,000 watt hours of battery capacity or more. Now, all the units that I evaluated in this category have an RV30, or sometimes called a NEMA TT30, 30 amp AC outlet, which is very handy for RV hookups, but it's also handy for connecting the unit to a home manual transfer switch for backup power. Plus, they offer multiple backup expansion options, and all have a 5-year warranty, and as you might expect, they're all pretty darn heavy due to those large battery capacities. Now, with these capabilities, this class of power station can not only provide several days of power on the go, but also an added flexibility to act as a very respectable and functional backup power solution for your house, especially if you'd happen to take advantage of the battery expansion options that these power stations all do provide. Now, my pick for the best budget power station in the extra large category is the Anker Solix F2000, coming in at an attractive $1,299, which is considerably lower price than it was when it was introduced about a year and a half ago, back when it was branded as the Powerhouse 767, and then they later rebranded it as the F2000, and that was because the parent company, Anker, decided that they wanted to be a serious player in the power station market, and they created a separate business unit called Solix that focuses exclusively on this product space. So the F2000 has 2,400 watts max continuous power output. It's got 2,048 watt hours of battery capacity. It's got 1,000 watts of solar input capacity, and it uses the latest high output USB tech. And it also uses the new, more efficient gallium nitride transistors instead of the more cheap and less efficient, more common silicon-based transistors. And to help you move it around without putting a strain on your back, it does have a set of wheels in the back and a telescoping luggage handle, which is a nice touch. Now, my pick for the best overall power station in this extra large category is the Pecron E3600 LFP, packing a whopping 3,600 watts of continuous AC output and a massive 3,072 watt hours of battery capacity. And it is expandable to over 15 kilowatt hours. Now, the E3600 LFP does come in at a very modestly priced $1,599. And considering how much capacity you're getting, and that it does have the ability to be connected in parallel with a second E3600 if you wanted to double the output to a massive 7,200 watts and get 240 volt split phase output, this is probably the least expensive solution that I've seen that will give you that kind of output and expansion capability, which enables this unit to act not only as a high capacity, standalone, portable power solution, but also a very solid home emergency backup power solution. All right, one final option that I want to mention here, it's kind of a wild card, is the Bluetti Elite 200 V2. And this power station is just now hitting the market, and I did just recently post a video on it, but I don't have the pricing at the time that I'm recording this. But this unit is kind of sitting between the large and extra large categories. It's got a monster 2,600 watt AC inverter output. It's got a very large 2,073 watt hour battery capacity, but they've somehow managed to squeeze all of that into approximately the same form factor of most power stations with about half that capacity. And the Elite 200 V2 does lack battery expansion option, so be aware of that. And it does not have a TT30 outlet. So it's not really an apples to apples comparison with the other units in this extra large capacity or extra large category. But that said, I at least wanted to mention this particular unit because of two standout features. First, it's built with the best EV grade battery cells currently available, and that gives it the longest rated service life of any power station that I've seen, nearly double the rated service life of everything else that's pretty much currently on the market. And it has far and away the most efficient AC inverter that I've seen on a power station, netting a usable AC capacity numbers in the 97% range, actually slightly higher than that. That's about 15 percentage points above the average. And like I said, at the time that I'm recording this, I don't yet have the final pricing information on it, but I do think this Bluetti Elite 200 V2 might be worth checking out. Okay, there's one final category worth mentioning here, but this is kind of stepping maybe slightly beyond the scope of a portable power solution discussion, but that is the modular home backup power category. And in many ways, this category is very similar to the extra large category, with the main difference being that these modular solutions have a separate inverter module that then connects to one or more battery modules. So you always need at least one battery module in addition to the inverter module. And these are all capable of outputting 240 volt split phase, either natively or by connecting two inverter modules in parallel. And while these modular systems can be used as portable power solutions, they're a bit less convenient for that particular use case, since you do have to have at least two modules, the inverter and the battery, in order to be able to function at all. So you can think of these modular systems as a kind of flip side of the extra large category coin, but prioritizing home backup power over portability. Now there are several options in this category. There's the Bluetti AC300 and the Bluetti AC500 solutions, and these can natively output 120 volts only, and they do require you to parallel a second inverter module in order to get 240 volt split phase output. And then there's a product like the EcoFlow Delta Pro Ultra, which can output 240 volt split phase even from just a single unit, but it can also be combined with multiple units to get even higher total power output. Now, in full disclosure, unlike everything else that I've mentioned so far, I've not gotten my hands on that EcoFlow Delta Pro Ultra yet, so I'm just going to kind of share some of my thoughts on these types of units rather than make a specific recommendation. And between these three options, only the Bluetti AC300 and the AC500, which are 3,000 watts and 5,000 watts respectively, can really be considered portable, in the sense that one person with some strain on the back can actually move these around one module at a time, so that's a plus. However, as I said, that to get that 240 volt split phase output from these units, you do have to combine two of those inverters connected with the communications cable, and then a special splitter cable that gives you the 240 volt output. Now, in contrast, that EcoFlow Delta Pro Ultra can provide 240 volts without having to connect a second inverter unit to get that. So that might save you a little money there, or it's more expensive up front, so there is that. But I'd make one final observation that I think is worth noting here, and then this is the case of the Bluetti AC300 and the AC500 solutions, that in a split phase configuration where you're outputting 240 volts, since each inverter module has to have its own battery modules, you kind of have to take extra care to balance the loads across both phases, or one side will drain much more quickly than the other side, and as you might expect, when one side is fully depleted, your 240 volt output is done, even if you have plenty of charge remaining on the other side. And I can tell you from experience, if you're powering multiple loads, it can be fairly tricky to get a decent load balance across both sides of that setup. So even though I've not actually tested the Delta Pro Ultra firsthand, the fact that it can output 240 volts natively does, at least on paper, seem like it would be an easier solution to live with if you require 240 volt split phase. But you're also likely going to pay a bit more for that convenience. So I think I'm going to save a more detailed discussion of the modular home backup power solutions for a future video once I've gotten some additional hands-on time with other brands so that I can provide a more fairly balanced comparison. Okay, I think that about wraps it up on this video. I did put links for you in the description below for all of the detailed reviews that I've done for each of the units that we've talked about, and also where you can go to buy them, or maybe just go get more information if you want to dig into the details a bit further for yourself. I do sincerely hope that you found at least something helpful in the video, and if you did, please consider clicking that like button for me. I'd very much appreciate that, and I sincerely do thank you for spending some of your valuable time with me, and do hope you'll consider joining me for the next one. Until then, have fun out there.